Hello, very good morning to you all. I, Preeti Kashyap from NZAMT Publishing, welcome you all to the fifth session of Day 2 of Mathematics Summit second edition. So yesterday we brought you power-packed math sessions, and today also we are bringing you back-to-back sessions bombarded with great knowledge and techniques that will make you feel invincible in your classrooms. So in this session, we will talk about the 5 practices in practice for effective pedagogy, where our expert speaker will talk about how to develop and sustain a discourse-rich math classroom for a problem-solving approach. So before we begin, I'd like to tell you about our speaker for this session, Ms. Bina Kachwalla. Ms. Bina is an accredited facilitator with expertise and interest in mathematics education. She is experienced in co-constructing professional development solutions with schools based in firmly on current research and evidence that support the core principles of the New Zealand curriculum. Her role as mathematics consultant in schools is to help leaders to develop and sustain professional learning communities in which teachers grow their capability. She has presented at conferences and symposia in New Zealand and Australia, including PMA, AMA, NZAMT, MERGA, and MAV. Before I hand over the mic to Ms. Bina, I'd like to mention some housekeeping rules to you all. So the participants will be muted throughout this entire session. Please make sure you have a pen and paper to note important information. The chat box will only be enabled during the Q&A round. To receive your e-certificates, please fill out the feedback form that will be sent to your registered email ID after the summit. The lucky draw and quiz will take place today at the end of the summit, that is at 5 p.m. All the participants stand a chance to win Amazon vouchers worth up to rupees 40,000. So please don't miss any sessions. So let us all welcome Ms. Bina. Hello, ma'am. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your kind words and introducing me. And thank you very much for being here today. It's a Saturday. I'm not sure whether schools in India are working in, are they on Saturday, or do we have a day off? But anyway, it's really wonderful to have these math enthusiasts coming on board. Before we start the webinar, I think I would like to just introduce myself and talk about how my journey became. It's very important for us to understand that how the thinking process as a teacher we need to develop, and how do we do that. So when I came to New Zealand and I started working in schools, I realized that I need to not being just a teacher in the classroom, but I need to really understand how students think, what are they doing, and why do they want to be part of the classroom experiences. And for that, probably you need to, I attended lots and lots of webinars. Sorry, not webinars in those days. We had workshops because it was not online. So I attended most of the workshops. My passion was mathematics at that particular time as well. So I attended most of the workshops for mathematics and realized that every facilitator, every researcher has so much to contribute. And I think that changes your way of thinking. And that's what I'm going to present today, that what we need to think about as teachers needs to develop. Okay, and that's the pedagogy, our actions in the classroom. So I share my screen with you. And what's happening? Why is my PowerPoint not coming up? Are you sharing my screen or you're sharing your screen?
I'm sharing the screen.
Now, all right, I'll do it now.
All right.
I was probably sharing. Yeah. Okay.
No
Here we go.
Yeah. Now we can see now.
Yeah, you can see my screen now.
Yes.
You? Okay. So this is the topic for today, is the 5 practices in practice. The effective pedagogy is not only one particular pedagogy in the sense that
if you could just make it full screen, that will be great.
Mine is full screen here.
Start the slideshow, ma'am.
Sorry?
If you could just start the slideshow, ma'am.
There?
Not visible.
It's a slideshow on my screen, darling.
Ma'am, right now it's not showing on the full screen.
Yeah. How do I do? Okay, I'll end it again and start again, okay?
Yeah. That'll do it.
So I'll start again, which is now.
Ma'am, it's not on full screen.
Hey, what do I do now? You tell me.
Ma'am, you can just stop sharing and then, relaunch the PPT, and then you can. Yeah.
Okay, so. Let me see whether this works. I'm not sure that this is the one.
Yeah, perfect now. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So we are looking at, sorry, people, it's sometimes these technical things I'm not very good at. All right. So 5 practices in practice is a wonderful, it's a book here that I would refer to. I'm not sure. How can I see it? Okay. And all right. So we'll go and talk about what the whole idea about my session is. And that's the book that I'm talking about, which is written by Smith and Stein, and we'll talk about that a little later. But in this webinar, we are looking at the teacher beliefs. The first important thing is our beliefs. And I can definitely talk through my experiences that I really did not understand what my beliefs were to start with. So I would like you people to think about what your beliefs are. We'll talk about that as well. And the model, what this model is all about. We are talking about many, many different types of model. And Peter Lalhidal also talks about his model of teaching. So it's variety of different models, but all of us are looking at the discourse, the orchestrating discourse, and how do we do that in the classroom. And I was going to talk about quite a few problems, but I thought the time would not be sufficient to do many problems. I'm going to just talk about one problem to justify the impact of this 5 practice. So what does it look like? So you need to be ready with your pen and paper to start solve problem when I ask you to, okay? So looking at this, what is mathematics learning and teaching is all about? It's all about teacher and students' beliefs, developing mathematical identity. The students need to believe that they are mathematicians. And once they start believing that they are mathematicians, then I think half the burden or half the battle is won already. Developing classroom culture. Very important that the classroom culture is safe for students to think. I mean, if thinking requires a lot of risk-taking and solution that the students want, if they want to discourse or want to have their ideas shared, they need to have argumentation. They need to think about what are they talking about and why are they doing what they are doing. They may make mistakes, and mistakes are very valuable as far as safe culture is concerned. Somehow there is a little hang up as far as wrong answers in mathematics are concerned. If you think about that, how important it is when the children start walking, and how many times do they fall before they start walking? We start learning bicycles, and how many times have we fallen off the bicycles? But every time we fall off, we want the encouragement, or people do encourage us that, okay, that's all, or that's a part and parcel of life. But as far as mathematics is concerned, most of the people think that they need to get right answers. And why is that? I don't know. I think we need to think about changing that culture in classrooms and a growth mindset. And that culture is, again, the growth mindset, thinking about lots and lots of different ways of thinking and going outside the square box and looking at, am I growing? Am I having a fixed mindset, or whether I'm having a growth mindset? I'm going to talk about Joe Bowler's, some of the beliefs, or I would say they are the norms, but I would also consider them as beliefs. And the first important belief that I would talk about is everyone can learn math to the highest levels. When I was a teacher, or when I was becoming a teacher, I really did not believe that. I felt that people do think, I mean, people are mathematicians or they are not, or they can be good at maths or they may not be good at maths. But after going through a lot of experiences in life, I've taught year 1 to year 8, that is at all different levels for probably 30 years by now. And last 10 to 15 years, I have been facilitating in different classrooms, training the teachers how to teach. And through that experience, I realized that if our pedagogy, or if the classroom culture and our beliefs are really inclined towards the path of students' thinking, then every child in my classroom will be able to attend at the highest levels. And I have really experienced that. And the teachers who really put this pedagogy into practice, they feel the same as well. Depth is more important than speed. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Looking at math class is about learning and not performing. How many of us thought about that I need to have better grades, and that is a better mathematician? But when you look at the actual thinking, the deep thinking that we want students to develop, and the mathematicians that they develop, they realize that performance is not what we would be looking at. Not only performance, that's important. Questions are really important. We need to have students asking questions, and teachers Also, asking questions on not rescuing kids, very important. If the kids are struggling, we feel that, oh, I need to help him and I need to tell him certain things to do, or I'll tell him how to group these things. But if you are doing things for kids or you are rescuing the kids, what's happening is you are thinking and the kids are not. Actually, you are thinking for them, but they are not actually thinking. The math is about creativity and making sense. The kids need to know, what is it? Why am I doing it? And lastly, important, that math is about connections and communicating. If you listened to Peter Lelidal yesterday, he's talking about the maths is connections. And one of the important process that today in the 5 practices is making connections. It's important. So I would like you to just think about, you go into your classroom or any classroom and you ask the kids, who is a good mathematician in your class? I would just like you to think about, put it on your chat if you can, just quickly. And I'm not sure whether I can see the chat, maybe I can. And just put, what do you think the kids are going to talk about? Who is a good mathematician in your class? You can write. Ramakrishna says me, and why me? Math teacher, okay. Students, why? Which student? Better than others, yes. The first teacher, the topper, okay, it's important. Okay. One who gets good marks, absolutely. They will say you are Ramanujan, yeah, but he's not in your class, is he? The one who is good at calculations, absolutely. Creative students, okay, fantastic, okay. All right, I'll just stop the chat now because, yeah. So, and I have been in the classroom and I've also seen that the students who say that that particular child is a good mathematician because he's very good at answering questions. He's very quick with mathematics. He knows what his answers are. And those who are not fast at thinking, those who are not good at answering questions quickly, they feel that they are not good at mathematics. But it's absolutely not true. So we need to think about ourselves as who is a good mathematician and allow this belief to be shared with kids. Good mathematicians are those who can make mistakes, but they can fix them too. Okay, they can change their ideas. If somebody else is talking something and they would start about, oh, I can share his thinking, or I can develop more on his thinking, because that's how mathematicians, or when you work as a team, they work together, explain their thinking, justify their thinking, why are they doing what they are doing, share their ideas, understand others' opinions, and have friendly argumentation. So when you look at your mathematicians in your classroom, if you believe they are mathematicians, we need to develop this classroom culture, that these are the people who are going to be future mathematicians, and they are the one. Are they working as a team? Are they helping each other in getting the ideas together? Or are they shaping the solution together? Can they realize that making mistakes is a stepping stone to learning? And are they going to have any argumentation? They don't, generally what happens is somebody says, oh, this is the answer. And if others think that, okay, he's a good mathematician, they all are going to agree with his answers, but it may not be true. You need to think about, why is he saying that, and why would his answer be different than my answer? Those are the things that we want the thinkers developing here. We just don't want, yes, if you have attended Peter Lelidal, he said people are mimicking. We don't want people mimicking. We want thinkers in the classroom. And those are the thinkers who can argue and say, I do not agree with you. I do not understand what you're saying. I don't understand, how did you get there as an answer? What kind of system did you use, or what kind of solution strategies did you use? So the process that we are looking at as a good pedagogy is a collaborative practice. And in the practice, though I'm going to look at the 5 practices in general, these 5 practices are collaboration with all these thinkers. So we are looking at Joe Bowler, who's looking at the growth mindset along with Carol Dweck. We are also looking at Susan Chapin, who are looking at discussions in the classroom, and Smith and Stein, who are looking at 5 practices, that is orchestrating classroom discussions. So how do we allow that classroom discussion to happen? James Nottingham is talking about the learning pit, that every time you learn something new, you're going to go right in the pit, and that is okay. That is the way everyone learns. So if you go into a new classroom, if I'm going to start learning Japanese, and I'm not going to learn from the very first day and think about, oh yeah, I know everything. I'm going to think about what I feel scared. I feel thinking that, oh, am I going to learn the way I want to learn? And you always go in the pit first, and then slowly you come out of the pit. Peter Lally-Dall is talking about the thinking classrooms. Peter Sullivan is talking about rich tasks or open-ended tasks or questionings. Those are the things that we are. So all these wonderful researchers have put those thoughts together. And my request for those who want to be good mathematicians or good teachers in the classroom, go through these researchers. I mean, that's wonderful readings. And every time you read something, you learn, and you try and put it in practice. And that's what, when you put it in action, that's your pedagogy. Thinking here is not the pedagogy. What you can see in the classroom is the pedagogy, okay? So this practice is going to talk about the discourse, as I talked about, but it also helps teachers to balance between what the students are thinking and what is the goal. What is the goal of my lesson? And also it supports equitable mathematical classrooms. Now, equitable maths is very important. And what is creating that equity is that I do not have inhibition with me or the thinking that this child is not a good student, but this child is a good student. So, you know, your behavior, your gestures, your facial expressions show that it's very evident in the classroom that you smile and you don't smile at people who are, you know, talking sense or may not be talking sense. But those who don't make sense are sometimes better thinkers. And so you need to value those people. So equitable classroom is where you have mixed ability classrooms, or mixing the good groups together. And if talk about visible random grouping, that means students are grouped together without the teacher realizing that these are the students who are going to work together. That is one of the ways that we have realized the researchers are showing that students are engaged, they're attending, they're not mimicking, and they're thinking. So in these 5 practices, there are actually 6 processes. When they started writing the book, they did not talk about the goal 0, okay? The first 0 process or the step. They started with anticipating, monitoring, selecting, sequencing, and conveying. And then they realized that we are forgetting actually the first and most important process or the practice that the teacher should have is called setting the goals. So if I have my goal in my mind that this is what I want to teach today, or this is what my long-term plan is talking about, or this is my weekly plan is talking about, and this is the goal that I need to have for this particular week, what I'm going to do as a research teacher is going to think about which task would be able to sustain that goal, or which task will be moving towards moving students thinking towards the goal. So that's very, very important. And goal setting is also be looking at allowing the high level task. You know, the teacher's mindset here needs to think about changes, that I'm not teaching maths, but I'm teaching mathematicians. So if you have saying, okay, come on, mathematicians, come on, let's start doing this problem, then means the students are thinking, oh, I'm a mathematician, and that gives them the mathematician's identity also. It's very important. So productive mathematical discussion is that what we need in the classroom. The first step. I have, of course, learned in India, and I have done lots and lots of problems while I solve the problem in the mathematics classroom. And this would be one of the problems that would be there when you're looking at area and perimeter problems. Generally give this out. The length and width of the rectangle is given 6 and 12 meters. Find the perimeter and the area of the rectangle. I want you to quickly solve it. It's not a difficult task, okay? So you think about the area of the rectangle. Now you know it. So many of your students might know it as well. But when they start learning about it, they do not know. But if you tell them, they would know. But that's not what their learning is. You have told them, and they are thinking, so it's mimicking. How would they learn what is the area? And how would they know what is the perimeter? Okay, so this is what we need to think about, that how would you really understand what is the area of the rectangle? So as a teacher, I would set the goal that I want the students to develop their understanding of area and the perimeter, or the connection between area and perimeter. Most of the time, students make a lot of issues, or they're confused. If you're asking an area, they would give me the perimeter. If I ask the perimeter, they will give me the area. So it's not, they don't know exactly why are they doing and what are they doing. And the students generalize the equation. The students need to tell me, this is the way I would find a area of a rectangle, not telling them what the formula is or what is the equation, okay? So how would we do that in the classroom? So why am I looking at developing that orchestrating discourse in the classroom? Is how the discussion should be with the students, that what am I going to do here? How am I going to solve the problem? But if I would have a problem this way, then they don't have anything of thinking about it. They know that if I know it, if I know the multiplication 6 times by 12, and that's the answer. But if I don't know what is the equation, then I'm going to just not worry about it because I don't know it. That means it is not a low floor, high ceiling problem. How do we develop a problem which is rich? So let's do things this way. And I want you to solve this problem. I want to make a garden in a shape of a rectangle. I have 36 meters of fencing. What different dimensions might the garden look like? I'll read it one more time. And that's what I would do in the classroom as well. I want to make a garden in the shape of a rectangle. I have 36 meters of fencing. What different dimensions might the garden be? When I launch this problem in the classroom, I would ask the students to think about it and highlight what are the important aspects of this problem that would help me solve the problem. So the kids have learned to understand what is important here. So they would say that the shape of the garden is important. And how is a shape? Of course, it is in a rectangle. And they would highlight it. What else is important? There are 36 meters of what? It's fencing, okay? What does that fencing look like? So we are only looking at not the roof. We are not looking at the floor of the garden. We are only looking at the sides, the fencing on the sides. What different dimensions might the garden be? What have I done from the problem that was here? I have given the same ideas to the kids with the similar perimeter, but the kids have to now come up with the ideas themselves. I'm giving you just a few seconds to think about. I want you to think about how many different dimensions. How would your garden look like? In your chat, I would like you to just think about what would be the sides and what could be. Would you be able to share some of your ideas? I may not give you a lot of time. 2 times 18, awesome. 10 and 8, okay. 9 and 4, 6 and 6. Awesome. What is Factors of 36. So what does that mean? Okay. 1 and 17, okay. 2 and 18, 3 and 12, okay. The sum of the length, okay. You're going too fast and I can't even read it. Okay, 9, okay. Right, factors. When you say factors of 36, hey, awesome, all right. I'm going to now go a little further. Thank you, people. I would just hold on to your ideas, okay, because we are going to go a little further. So now what I'm going to do, what you have already done is we go to the second practice, and which is called anticipating. Now you have already, you have already thought about the anticipation. That means that some of you did say that if I would make a rectangle and I would say, I'll just take some of that, I would have 10 over here or 10 meters, and then 10 meters here would make it 20 meters. And I would have 5 meters. Is it 6? What is it? 36, isn't it? So I would have 8 meters here and 8 meters here. That could be my fence. So when you're looking at factors of 36, I'm a little bit confused here, that if I would say 36, there's 8 times 8, 10 and 8 makes factors of 36. Okay. So looking at, what are we looking at? So how are the kids going to say? Some of you did say that if I have 11 or 12 here, and okay, 6 over here. Okay. So you're anticipating these are the solution methods that the kids would have, right? And so what are the different ways the kids are going to, very important before you go into the classroom to think about what are the different things the kids may come up with. So you need to solve the problem before you go and ask the students to solve the problem. But the next step is even more important. So, okay, these are the possible solutions and they would make different rectangles. But the second part that I'm looking at in anticipating is, what are the students' misconceptions? Did any of us have misconceptions while we were solving this problem? I would like you to think about what could be students' misconceptions if they have to think about that 36 meters is the amount of meter fence that I have. How am I going to put it across the 4 sides? Okay. I would like you to have a little chat amongst you on the chat that what could be the misconceptions. Area and perimeter and area, they get mixed up. We have too far. Square, they make sides, okay? When you say this is, so 6 times 6. Well, I was just talking about one misconception is 6 times 6. Is 6 times 6 going to make will solve the problem? They would make 36 as each side, yes. Square is okay, square. So we'll talk about difference understanding between the square and the rectangle, okay. 36 each sides, yes, that could be the misconception. Lots and lots of different misconceptions happen. And that is important. If I know that my kids may, they would have, which would give the area, that's right. The factors of 36 do not give the perimeter. The factors of 36 would give you the area. And so many people think about that if I have 36 as a fence, then I'm just going to think about 6 times 6 or 9 times 4. And 9 times 4 is not going to give you the perimeter because it's not going to give the 36 as the fence on the sides. The calculations can be wrong, absolutely. These are the important ideas that we need to develop as a teacher. When I was teaching, I never thought of finding out what could be the misconceptions. But today, when I go in the classroom, I have my set of ideas already thought about. that these are the misconceptions. And when I see that happening, I'm already ready with questioning. That if I see that they're making the mistakes of perimeter and area, I would say, how would that number go on the sides? Can you draw it for me? And I would walk away from there. Awesome, Neeraj, that I like that different ways of looking at that is where the composition or different, there is no one answer to this. There are so many answers to this question, and that's why it's open-ended question. So when you think about giving that open-ended question, you are giving the low floor and high ceiling in the sense that you are also allowing the kids to, so some of them might just draw the square or a rectangle to start with, and they may just put some numbers. But if I put them in groups, or if the kids are working as groups, then they would realize that they are talking amongst themselves. Some of them are just drawing and not finding out. They will learn from somebody else who's talking. There would be a gallery of work. People can look at others, and that's how the learning takes place. Learning is collaborative. Okay. So when they took, these are the different ideas that I have just put together. You people have come up with so many misconceptions, which is amazing. So I'm looking at students may not know how to draw a rectangle. And I have come across students who don't, because they may not draw parallel lines and two pairs of parallel lines, okay? If students draw the rectangle, they may not know the perimeter is 36 meters. These are some of the misconceptions, but there's so many more that you have talked about. They may not know how to distribute the 36 meter fence in 4 lengths. Do they know the parallel sides of the same lengths? They may not know how to find the area. And that is what my lesson for today is. Would they know how to find the area? They may be confused between area and perimeter, which you people said a lot. So these are the misconceptions that I'm ready with. And when I'm entering the classroom, I know that they are going to make mistakes, or they are going to have all these confusions. And that is very important, because that is called productive struggle. They need to struggle before they start working on it, okay? So next is monitoring. So while I'm monitoring, that means the students are given the task. I'm not going to rescue them, but they are free to go and talk to people, or they're in the groups of 4 or groups of 3. My ideal group is 3 to start with. So I have them in groups of 3. I ask them to get into groups of 3, and they would work together, and they would learn, talk, discuss, because the classroom culture is made in a way that these are all norms, acceptable norms, that if I don't know, I need to go and ask somebody. Or if I'm struggling, these are the people who are going to support me and get me out of the pit, because they know about the learning pit. They know about learning is an important, and confusion is important for learning. It's a productive struggle and that's how the brain develops. The brain is a muscle, and brain starts working better or gets shaped better when the muscles are working, okay? And that is, the kids know that, okay, they would say, oh, my brain's working really hard today because I'm having a productive struggle. So they know that we tell them this is a process of learning. So I would be monitoring. I would go and see where are the kids struggling. And if they struggle, I would just spray and walk away. That means I would spray a question. I would give a question to them and walk away, so that they would start thinking. And you don't need to do that most often, but sometimes you do when you feel the kids are just not able to think, all right? Selecting, then monitoring, you go and select some of the kids who are doing, or which group is doing what. You need to know all your students are doing, or they are engaged. So that's how. There are different groups, they are talking, they're solving the problem together. I haven't yet started, Peter Lelidal, standing or vertical surface. So we are still sitting on the floor and working out the problems, but I would be doing that because that is more visible. So if a group is doing here and the group is doing there on a vertical surface, then they can also shift from one group to the other and say, okay, what are these people doing? Let's all discuss together. So they can, from group of 3, they may get into a group of 6 and work together. So that's all important idea of learning, okay? Once they would be knowing what they are probably doing, and I would know that these people are really working at, and these people have come out with many, many solutions. I would be selecting those people who haven't, or who are struggling, and then sequencing them. So selecting, sequencing, monitoring is part and parcel of while the kids are working. All right. Why is this important? Because this is where the equity comes in. That equality is so important, that that's more than one way. The kids would say, oh, there's more than one way of answering, because I can see these people have made 5 rectangles and they are putting different numbers over there. Let me go and have a look at that, because I have only thought about one way. Or I feel valued when the teacher says, okay, I can see so much of task is done. So praise is not for the student that you are clever. Praise is for the work that they do. And that is being valuing. Otherwise, they would say, well done, but he doesn't know what have I done good or not. I can use somebody else's idea. And my method works too. I can do it. Doesn't matter if my method is a different way, but we can do it too. I like that method. And sometimes I say, oh, I don't like my way of doing it, but because Bina is doing it different way, but I can understand Bina's way better than mine, I would use her method. My ideas matter. Very important for the kids to think about that. Yes, the teacher's listening, the kids are listening, and that is respect. You respect the kids, kids respect you. The kids respect each other, and that is how the mathematicians work, or that is how my class works, okay? And the last one is connecting, and that's where the teacher's role come in the sense that, what am I doing here? That my goal is to put these ideas together. So many kids have thought about it in different ways. Let me sort this out and let me put all the ideas on a board and find out which one do we associate with. What is my goal? My goal was to understand the area. How are my kids able to understand how to find the area? So that is how my questioning would work once they are presenting. Okay, and the kids would present their answers. I will not. So the kids come out with, okay, these 3 kids are going to talk about, these are the different rectangles we have found out because, and they might just say this plus this plus this plus this is the parameter. And then we would talk about whether they would understand, because after they do most of the problem, I would ask them one more question. Which of your drawing or dimension of your rectangle gives the maximum area? And that is my next question. Which one gives the maximum area? That's where the kids need to think about, why do I need to know the area of it? Okay. So before, during, and after, these are the different beginning, middle, and end of the lesson that you're talking about. Is before the lesson, before you're planning, you're looking at the goal. What was my goal? What is the task that I'm going to add? During the lesson, and of course, anticipating, very important. So when I ask my teachers to plan, they've planned collaboratively. So one team teaching the similar age group will be working together, and they say, okay, in this week, we are going to do these problems. This is the way we are going to solve the problem. This is the way we are going to anticipate what the problem or misconceptions in the classroom would be. And selecting and sequencing would become during the lesson. Monitoring, selecting, sequencing. Forgotten about monitoring here for some reason. And after the lesson is at the end of the lesson is the connection. That can I connect? Did the kids understand what the goal was? Because I will not tell them what your goal was. I would ask, what did you learn today? And that is important. That is so important. So this is what my kids did in the classroom. Okay. So would say that, okay, because the question was, which one gives the maximum area? And so what happened over here? One of the students said, okay, I had 14 plus 14 is 28 plus 4 plus 4, and that gives 36. And what happened here? That the squares, I gave them a grid paper. That is important, because I wanted to know that if the kids did not know 14 times 4, they could actually count these squares. And they can say that how many square meters would that be? Very important for the people to understand, why are they called squared? Why is it called 56 meters square or squared meters? Because there are squares within that. Then there are no rectangles or triangles inside. They are the squares inside, which gives them the squared meters. And that's how the kids came out with so many different ways. There's no one answer. And also the kids were exposed to different dimensions, okay? The kids realized that there's no one way of looking at area times perimeter and getting the idea and answer. I would find how many squares are there in each shape. How do you count them? And they count them by multiplying, or they count by adding. And then the kids would come out with the idea, some of them who know it, that outs times 4 times 14, because there are 4 squares in one line and there are 14 such lines. So 14 times 4, and that becomes 56. Here it became 13 times 5, 12 times 6, 11 times 7. And they realized that is the way to find the area of a rectangle, the length times the width or the breadth. But I questioned them that, can you tell me that what is the difference and what is the similarity in this particular problem? What is the similarity between all these rectangles? What is the difference between all these rectangles? That is where I talk about the connection or the relationship between numbers, or relationship between the problem that, so notice between these shapes. And the kids came out with, or could you think about it? I'll just give you half a minute to think about what is the relationship between all these shapes and what is the difference between all these shapes. You can write in the chat. What remains the same? Yeah, same perimeter, awesome. What is the same? And yeah, they're all rectangles, awesome. And that is what so anybody answers, talk about its perimeter remains the same, area is different, and the perimeter is the same. Isn't that amazing? And that is what my kids came out. That, and of course, length of one increases, that awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, because that's exactly what my kids, these are your 5th and so 5th and 6th grades kids, and they came out with this answer saying that the perimeter remained the same, but the area changes. And awesome. Then also they realized, they also had a discussion about, it's a friendly discussion that we're talking about, that is a square a rectangle? And some of the kids said, no, a square can't be a rectangle. And some of them say rectangle has to be 2 big lines and 2 small lines and all sorts of things. So just I said, okay, 30 seconds, go and ask the Google. So they went into the research and found out, and they realized as a square is a rectangle, or it's a subset of rectangle. It's a special rectangle. And that was amazing, because that was their learning. So we're looking at stretching them. They're stretching them, that they would be looking at developing different dimensions, at the same time finding out the equations themselves. They generalized that 4 times 14 or 5 times 13 is what the area is all about. The learning is, so these are the extending students. This is going to the developing wondering questions. And this was amazing. When I said, can you think about any wondering questions that arises? And they said, perimeter is the same, area changes, but can the area remain the same and the perimeter change? I said, that would be the next time. Let's investigate that. So we would investigate the next time. Okay, area is the same. Can the perimeter change, or would it remain the same? Of course, it doesn't, but is area a rectangle? A square or rectangle? And that was new learning for so many of them. Does a square provide maximum space with the same perimeter in the rectangle? That is so important. That if the perimeter is 9, it's the 36, but if you make it, and actually the kids started telling me that if you come closer and closer and closer to a squarish area, that was such an amazing observation, that becomes more and more of a square, the area becomes larger. So look at that, 10 and 8 is having a larger area than 11 and 7. So we are coming more towards square, which is 9 plus 9 and 9. It is the area increases. And I'm going to very much stop over here, and how do we generalize the area of the rectangle? So they came out with the equation themselves, that one side times the next side, or length times width, or length times breadth, or whatever they call it. So my whole idea about this 5 practices is developing the discourse, but going through a little sequence. You don't have to really stick to the structure as much. But the most important thing is, am I thinking or my students are thinking? For students to truly learn what is intended, teachers need to help the students to see the connections between the solutions that are shared and the goals of the lesson. Very important. And we are looking at different types of problems, and there are many, many types of problems. I just shared one open-ended task, but you can talk about that. We want creative, challenging tasks, and we want productive struggles. Students need to have low floor, high ceiling problems, or many, many different open-ended questions, and lots of different types of questions are. But this is what I want you to remember. Their classrooms are filled with students who view mathematics as a collection of rules. It is not. It is a very creative subject and procedures to memorize. So kids say, oh, those who memorize the times tables, or they can memorize the basic facts, those are the mathematicians, and they are not. They can be, but they can be creative. We need to be creative as well. So we need to go deeper. We need to have a system where there is relationships developed and there are investigations. And we need to think about where are the connections between the goal, connections between the learning, or the numbers connections that we need to learn about. Okay, so this is the end of my session, and I stop share here. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions now.
So audience, the chat box is open now for you to put on your questions and your queries.
Come up with questions, people.
Ma'am, we are having so many appreciation messages from the audience. So there's one question, ma'am, from Pallavi. How can we include maths in daily routine?
In your mathematics classroom, or just the whole time, Pallavi? I think mathematics is every minute, every second we are talking about maths, isn't it? If you're so, people, Pallavi, to be very honest, I want you to think about that. My kids need to be thinking about the connections, or the numbers, or whatever we are looking at in the classroom, or whether we are looking at home, should be part and parcel of maths, because it is. You're coming to your classroom. I mean, from school to home is what is the time that you take, how do you travel, what is the speed that you travel with, all that is maths. So don't make maths as a very isolated subject. Try and make the problems which are developing in day-to-day time. So whatever is happening in the school today, if there is a function happening, if there is a sports happening, include that in your maths program. If that is the answer to my session, I'm not sure what you're talking about. But
so ma'am, there's another question from Mr. Ramkesh Pal. He's asking how to manage the students who are not interested in maths. Basically, he wants to know how to create, how to inculcate curiosity in maths, for maths in students, basically. Yeah,
that's so true, because curiosity is so important. And that is why I haven't actually added that for one of the questions that I was going to talk about. But if I give the problem, and if I tell them exactly what the problem is all about, then I'm not actually making them curious. So holding back some of the information is quite important. So in my problem here, I may have just put the, if I would talk about the garden fence itself, I would say that I would put the problem, but I would put a clip on or a paper on 36 meters. And I would just read the whole problem that I want to make a garden which has certain amount of meters over there. Ask the students, what do you think I would have written underneath? What are the important information that you require for you to solve the problem? And they would come out with, okay, there could be some. So let the kids think about what the problem is, rather than you telling them what the problem is and just solve the problem. So allow the kids to be curious about what are you going to ask about it. Maybe.
Right. Ma'am, there's another question from Miss Nandana Das. She's asking how to manage all these 5 ways in a 40-minute class. Can you suggest some time management strategies?
Yes, I can do that. So what I probably do is, initially it will probably take a little longer than 40 minutes. But as your kids get used to the system, I do that. We have 1 hour of maths in New Zealand. So in my schools, those schools that I go to, they do this problem solving every day. Now the kids know the system. The kids already know that what am I supposed to do here? So once they read the problem, they quickly turn into the problem with the groups and start solving. And they are supposed to be with different groups every day. It's not that the same groups they would have to be. So they know the system, but to cultivate that system, it takes a while, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks for them to understand what the culture of this classroom is, because this is something different. The kids are not used to this. So they need to think about safe environment, first of all. I can make a mistake. I can ask questions. I can take help of somebody else. Or if I know the problem, I know I'm going to share my ideas, because that's the way all mathematicians work. If that mindset is there, then it becomes very easy. And then they know that, okay, I'm going to read the problem. I know what the problem is all about. Let's start solving. And they all start talking. And then 40 minutes are not. We can easily do it in 40 minutes. Okay. It takes a while to start with.
Right. So, any more questions, audience?
Yes, you can apply this methods to different types of learners. All learners. That's why it is called equity. Okay, we are developing that equity in the classroom. Unless somebody is cognitively deficient, then this particular sessions are not, because we can't probably, I'm probably not skilled for cognitively deficient kids, okay?
Right. I guess, ma'am, we are not having any more questions now. So we'll just wrap it up then. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderfully insightful session. I'm sure these techniques will empower all educators in their classrooms and will enable them to create an amazing learning environment. I would also like to thank all the participants for joining. I hope you all found this session informative and helpful. So before I sign off, I would like to remind you all that we have another session scheduled after this at 12 p.m. today. So where we'll be taking up the topic of designing assessments in mathematics with generative AI. So set your reminders and join us back at 12, right? See you all in the next session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bina ma'am. It was a great session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you people attending. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.